Hi, it's Meg, and welcome back to Piano for Songwriters. Today, we are talking about writing songs in minor keys. That's right, we are finally at minor keys. Our first episode addressed everything about building a major key scale and major key chord progressions. So today, we're going to apply that same logic to minor keys. When building a minor scale, we can think about it in two ways. If you're confident in your major scale, then all you have to remember is that the minor version of that scale lowers the third and the sixth and sometimes the seventh scale degree. So let's take A major as an example for this. Our A major scale was A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. The first scale degree we lower is the third. So we count up three. We've got 1, 2, 3. We'll move the C sharp to a C natural. Great. Now we're going to go to the sixth. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Normally with an A major scale, our sixth is F sharp. But we'll pull that back to natural. And then our seventh is G sharp or G natural. Either of them work. There's a couple different types of minor scales. We won't get into the nitty-gritty of those, but just know that the seventh scale degree, you can play with which of those two notes you want to play. So our A major scale, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. Our A minor scale, A, B, third is lowered, C, D, E, sixth is lowered, F, and then G, A, or G sharp, A. The difference between the G, A, and G sharp, A scales you can hear here versus it's a very slight difference, but it can have a very big impact when you're songwriting. Our second way of building a minor scale is to memorize the interval pattern. If you remember from our first episode, our major scale interval pattern was whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Well, minor has a pattern as well, but it's a little bit different. It's whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, whole. So if we were going to build our A minor scale that way, we'd put our thumb on A. Our next note would be a whole step, meaning that it has one note in between. So this black note's going to be in between. Take us to B. The next is a half step with no notes in between. That takes us to C. Next is a whole step with one note in between, which this note counts as. So that would take us to D. Another whole step, and this is the note that's in between. So that takes us to E. Then we get a half step. We don't want any notes in between. Takes us to F. And then we've got a whole step. Takes us to G and A. Again, you can go to G sharp A if you'd like. So again, that is whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. There is a slight advantage to building our minor scales using the major scale. As you get more advanced, it's important to know the similarities between a major and a minor scale in the same key, so between A major and A minor. However, if building it with the intervals helps you get started, by all means, do that. You might also notice that I'm in A minor, and A minor has all white keys, unless you do the G sharp, just as our C major. We won't get into the nitty-gritty of why that's important in this episode, but it will be important in later episodes. All right, now you know how to make a minor scale. You either drop the third and sixth and sometimes the seventh, or you build it off the pattern we just learned. But how do you know what chords are in the minor scale? There are two ways to figure out what chords are diatonic to the minor scale. The first is memorizing another pattern. If you recall, our major chord pattern was 1 major, 2 minor, 3 minor, 4 major, 5 major, 6 minor, and 7 diminished, although we didn't talk about that diminished chord all that much. For minor chords, the pattern is as follows. We have a 1 minor, we have a 2 diminished, a 3 major, a 4 minor, a 5 minor, a 6 major, and a 7 major. Use this way if you are comfortable knowing how to play a major and minor chord with any root. For instance, if I sat at the piano and said, play me a C major chord, you could play it. Play me an F minor chord, you could play it. If you're not quite there yet, I would go back to our previous lessons in Piano for Songwriters and spend a little bit more time in those areas. However, there is another way you can build these chords to get yourself jump started. And that is through really knowing what notes are in the scale. So with A minor, you know that we have all white notes. For the purposes of this discussion, we won't talk about G sharp. We'll just do all white notes. So that means when I put my thumb on A, I go every other note, and that gives me the chord that A is in A minor. When I put my thumb on B, same thing. Every other white note. C, same thing. Every other white note. Put these little white ones in between. And then back to A. Now if we're in a different scale, for instance, C minor. C minor does not have all white notes the way that C major does. A C minor scale has C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C. If I was going to build the chords in the way we're discussing at the moment, I would need to know those notes very, very well. So that I would put my thumb on C, and I knew that the every other note would bring me to E minor. All right, so now we have the two ways to build minor chords and minor scales. Let's talk about common chord progressions in minor keys. Our first most common chord progression is a 1 minor, 4 minor, 5 minor, 1 minor. You can just call it a 1, 4, 5, 1, but know that you're in a minor key. You might recall that this was also a common progression for our major keys, except this time every chord is minor. So our 1, 4, 5, 1 in A minor would be A minor. Our fourth chord would be where our fourth finger falls, so D, D minor. Our fifth is E, E minor, and then back to A minor. Our second most common chord progression is a 1, 2, 5, 1 progression. In a minor key, that would mean that it's a 1 minor, a 2 diminished, a 5 minor, and a 1 minor chord. In A minor, that's A, B, E, A, or A minor, B diminished, E minor, A. Hear that again? Our next most common chord progression is a 1, 6, 3, flat 7. And we say flat 7 to indicate that, for instance, in the A minor, we will be playing the G, not the G sharp. If it was a 1, 6, 3, 7, it might indicate that the G sharp would be played instead. That is not a common chord progression, though. So in A minor, the 1, 6, 3, flat 7 would be A minor, F major, C major, and G major. We've got very uplifting chord progression. Our fourth chord progression we will be going over today is the 1, flat 7, 6, flat 7, 1. So using those same chords in the previous, but in a kind of different order. So we start on A minor, G major, F major, G major, back to A minor. I'm playing all of these in root position. If you have watched the prior episode on inversions, you can absolutely play around with the same exact technique to create inversions so your hand doesn't move all over the place with minor chords as well. But I'll keep it in root in case you haven't watched that episode. So again, the 1, flat 7, 6, flat 7, 1. Our final common chord progression for minor keys is a 1, flat 7, 6, 5. In A minor, that would be an A minor, a G major, an F major, and an E minor. And that's as follows. A minor, G major, F major, E minor. Play around a bit with the minor scales and these common chord progressions to start writing songs in minor keys. We have a few more episodes coming up, so please be sure to stay tuned, like and subscribe, and check out my breakdown of major keys and other major chord progressions in the links below. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. Please leave any questions you have in the comments. I am happy to answer them, and I hope this gets you started writing songs in minor keys.